something shifted differently than my usual meditation. I had this tremendous sense of acceleration traveling up my spine, through my head, and out through the top of my head. And though I was not sleeping at all, I would liken it to a kind of out-of-body experience where I was flying through our solar system.
You were recognizing planets in our solar system?
Yes, it was sort of strange because I looked down at myself, and how this is a bit different than other out-of-body experiences that I've had is that I don't see myself from head to toe. In this experience, I was looking back over my shoulder. So I'm flying away from Earth, and I'm thinking, why am I dressed in jeans and a T-shirt flying through space?
Mm-hmm.
And I look back and I say, oh, there's Earth, and there's the moon. And I kept on traveling, and I'd identify one planet after the other as I passed by them, going forward to the very edge of our solar system. But the whole time it seemed as if I was looking back over one shoulder and observing them all, passing through some very dense belt of matter as I went to the edge, and then finally into this void of black space. And at that point, for the first time, my eyes looked forward, and I continued to travel into this vast void. And in the same way, when you're at a red light or sitting alone at a cafe and you could feel somebody looking at you, and you turn your head to the side and you see someone's checking you out from the next car or from another table, in that way I felt a very intense focus on me, though I couldn't see anything initially. That's when, out of nowhere, this huge face and eyes appeared before me, something I had never seen in any pictures, had never read about.
What are you looking at?
I'm looking at what now, I guess, I would come to identify as a mantis being. But at the time, I'd never read about them or seen pictures of them.
Mantis to you means what?
It looked like a gigantic, and what I mean by gigantic, I'm guessing somewhere between 20 and 30 feet tall, because there's no cross-reference point in space to anything. But as it was coming toward me, the head was the dominant feature, and the eyes, and it had that very triangular face that a praying mantis would have.
Okay, the insect praying mantis.
The insect praying mantis, though I didn't think of a praying mantis at the time that I saw it. It was only afterwards when I spoke to some meetup group about UFOs that I shared my experience, and someone said, oh, that sounds like a mantis being. And I said, oh, yes, it looks like that.
Is there anything that you remember specifically about this large head and eyes and being in front of you that said to your human mind, this is an insect, this is a praying mantis?
Not in that way. I was overwhelmed by the power of presence that was suddenly before me. The minute my eyes could actually identify its shape and form, before I could even say, oh my God, this is so repulsive or scary or foreign looking to me, before I could even have a complete thought in that way, waves of thought energy flooded my being, and it was really a wave of love that filled me, one of the most powerful experiences of love that I can recall. And as I was overwhelmed by that warm feeling of connection, though to my eyes it was a repulsive image before me, this sense of being overwhelmed by love, and the thought was, we've been together before. And in my questioning, I said, in this form, meaning me, or in your form, as in you? And the response was, no, like me, meaning this alien being.
Mm-hmm.
And the confidence was that we had been together before and we will be together again. And at that point, we pivoted, because we're facing each other head to head. And then suddenly, for the first time, it's as if we're beside each other, looking back towards Earth in the far distance. And it said, you've had to come to Earth to learn certain lessons, and one day we'll be united again in this form as we once were. And that was my only understanding. And I thought, come to Earth for a few lessons. I feel like I've been there thousands of years with many incarnations. And what was surprising to me was that in all the years, in the 24 years I was coming and going to India and studying under this so-called enlightened master in the Himalayas, we've discussed reincarnation multiple times, but I never entertained the idea that reincarnation included beings outside of our earthly domain. So while I entertained that we could be everything from a blade of grass to any of the animals to humans and go back and forth in the varieties of life for whatever lessons and corrections there were for us to make, it was never really in my realm of conceptual understanding that this also included extraterrestrial beings or beings of another dimension altogether.
And did this being put in your mind's eye any images or symbols flowing into your consciousness that was like a common language between both of you?
No, it was everything I understood was in my own language, my own thoughts in my head, but I could see that they were clearly coming from the being whose eyes were so intense that they just traveled right into me. It was very disarming to be in front of this being that was between 20 and 30 feet with very long, extending arms that almost looked mechanical in how they bent and moved, but the eyes was what captured me and held me, and the feeling of love, of peace, of security, which I didn't expect at all when I saw it, and yet the minute those eyes met mine, I just knew it was like being home.
Why would Earth be a school for the praying mantises?
I understood that it was a school for the soul, and that the soul takes on many shapes and forms for its own growth and evolution. And until that moment, I never imagined it could include extraterrestrial beings as part of that soul journey. That was a new lesson for me that I'd never been exposed to before. And the other new lesson was seeing this mantis-like looking being, which I had never seen or read about up until that experience. So this one is perhaps the most impressive and lingering of all my life experiences. So that too strikes me as strange.
What happens as the praying mantis communicates to you that you have been on Earth to learn lessons?
When those words or those thoughts came to me, there was a very quick flash of many, many different lifetimes that, as a few frames per second, and within a couple of seconds, I saw maybe a dozen or more lifetimes, but they were not new to me. They were experiences that I believed I had perceived in other meditations when I used to live in India. So it's as if that tape got replayed very quickly of multiple lifetimes and of a soul or a consciousness taking on different bodies to continue its journey of expanding awareness.
And that the scan of images from your life, did you recognize them as being only this life, the one that you are 59 years old today, or did you see scenes that seemed to be from other lives?
There were many scenes from many lives, all of them taking place on Earth. Some as human, different than I am today, some as plant life, some as animal life, variety of expressions of humanity.
Did you have any emotional response to any of the images that were flashing by as a life review?
I could see myself in all of them, all qualities, and yet in the one where I was told we had been together before as this mantis-like being and we will be together again, in that one, it was perhaps the most full of the emotion that I associate with love.
What was the praying mantis loving about you?
It was seeing me at the deepest core of how I identify myself.
Can you describe that?
It recognized the collection of all the different qualities that I call me, whereas in all the different lifetimes, I said, oh, I'm some wanderer in the woods in India. I'm a fish swimming against the current. Regardless of the I that I assumed in that body, when I was with the Mantis being, it was like I was the core upon which all these other incarnations were like superpositions upon.
Did he make any motion or signal or transfer any kind of communication to you at the end of this meeting?
The last understanding that I had while we were side by side, it was to my left side. We were both looking towards Earth at that point. And what I understood was, you've got more lessons to learn while you're there, and we will be together again soon in this form. The body is a container for the soul consciousness to live and experience. And whether that experience is known in the container of a human being, an animal being, or an extraterrestrial being, that just may be the process for all of us, that we are physical containers for a more subtle consciousness and dimension. We have to be more than just humankind spinning through space without any relationship to life beyond, and that we aren't the only unique life, and that there is a consciousness that travels and is spread everywhere in the universe just the same. In fact, that is the only reality.